Howdy. Welcome to the Tony DeGonia Show. We're coming to you straight out of East Texas. So find you a spot where you get some good signal, grab you a glass of sweet iced tea, and get ready, because we're jumping in feet first. This is Tony DeGonia of the Tony DeGonia Show. Today I want to just do a quick comparison amongst three different router types that we have. I want to do this because I talk to so many small business owners, and they don't seem to put their network security as a priority. And so oftentimes I find business owners with, inexpensive or even cheap gateway routers, or just using the gateway router, or the DSL modem, or the Ethernet over copper T1 router that the phone company or internet provider brought into them as their primary gateway. And I think it's very, very important for for these business owners to understand that their data is just as important as any large enterprise. If we look back at some of the Cyber Simplified podcasts that I did, we can see that there's a trend over the last couple of years where hackers and cyber criminals are actually coming after smaller businesses who have tie-ins with larger enterprises. For example, with the Target hack, they were actually attacked through a vendor, which was an HVAC company. And so it's very, very important that we make sure and try and control access to even small environments, distributed environments, and mid-market and medium-sized environments in order to help stop cybercrime in its tracks as much as possible. Now, I'll tell you, there's no one band-aid, no one fix-all that we can apply. It's a common thing for attacks to go out. It's not uncommon if you're watching your gateway router, your gateway firewall on a consistent basis through any sort of monitoring program. It's not uncommon to see port sweeps, port scans, as many as 10 or 15 of them a day. I sit here on the other side of a satellite connection, and I see 5 or 6 a day coming in on my firewall. So it doesn't take much, and it only takes one incident to really put a hurt on a business, especially a small business. Statistics show that more than 50% of businesses who experience a cyber attack, small businesses never recover and wind up closing their doors within 1 year. Even large businesses who are cash rich have a very difficult time recovering from cyber attacks that come in. Not to mention, um, the data that gets lost if data is lost in certain circumstances, like a PCI compliant environment, or a HIPAA compliant environment, or Sarbanes-Oxley compliant environment, or GLBA environment. Then the organization that loses data in one of those environments can actually be liable, um, to make restitution to the folks who have had their identities, stolen, diverged, or divulged. There's also governmental fines that can go on up to $1 million a day, and things like that. So it really behooves you to take your network security, your gateway security very seriously. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at 3 gateway routers. This will be pretty short, and we're going to run some. You have to excuse me, my voice has been out a little bit here lately. We're going to take 3 routers. One of them is a very, very inexpensive D-Link. I literally, I think I paid less than $50 for it. We're going to take a gateway router / wireless access point from Ingenious. That's a bit more high end. I think it retailed originally at about $150. And then we're going to take a look at WatchGuard's T35, which is one of their tabletop models, perfect for SMB, 25 users or less. It is a little bit newer. I just picked it up. And it does retail for a bit more. I believe it's up in the $1,500 to $2,000 range, but it's got the full unified threat management package. However, for these tests, I've defaulted all 3 routers just to take a look at the basic tests that we're going to take a look at, and we'll get into some more detailed testing on some of the more advanced features in another presentation. But right now, what we're essentially going to do is we're going to do a port scan on all 3 of these, and then we're going to do what's called a ping of death, which essentially is where we ping each one of these firewalls or routers with very, very large packets, and we're going to see how they react and what kind of traffic that creates for each of these. Traditionally, you would want to turn off outside access or external access. But for the purpose of this testing, so that I can access all 3 of these routers without having to unplug and plug into each one of the backside networks, I have enabled outside access for each one. And for each one, you would want to turn off external ping. And currently, the only router that has external ping turned on is the WatchGuard, and that was from some previous testing I was doing. So while we're here, I will go ahead and show you how that would be turned back on, since we've got it here and we can do it. All right. So let's get ready. We're going to start these tests here in just a second. we'll start off with the Nmap, which is an application for mapping out networks. We can map out port numbers. We can do some very deep network scans that'll give us a lot of information about each one of these routers. The basis for what we consider good or bad is based on the number or the amount of information that we can get from each router, with them all set up as close to the exact same way as possible. And when we take a look and compare that information, which information is more accurate, because that's a big part of it. If a hacker does a network scan, how much information can they gather, and how much accurate information can they gather? Because the more accurate the information, the more likely and the less work they have to do to actually gain access to the network through the firewall. So if you're ready, I'm ready, and we'll get rolling on this. The first thing we're going to do is log in to the WatchGuard T35, and we're going to turn default the default services back on for blocking pinging. So the WatchGuard has a number of ways that you can access it. It has a scene type system for logging that gives you output in graphs, and it's very, very nice graphical interface. Gives you a lot of reports and things that you can run on the data that's sent over. I do not have that particular piece set up right now. However, for one of our later videos, I will set that up, and we'll be able to take a look at it. The other thing is they have their WatchGuard System Manager, which they were looking at phasing out a couple of years ago, but there was a lot of backlash because so many engineers prefer to utilize WatchGuard System Manager, and they're very used to it. So it's a pretty nice piece of software, and it's pretty user friendly for the most part. So we're logged into the WatchGuard now. What we'll do is we'll actually open up the Policy Manager, and we'll give that a second. And the Policy Manager has came up, and we'll see that we've got very basic policies here. We've got we've got a HTTP and HTTPS proxies. We've got a TCP UDP. This would be what they call a policy, kind of an allow all policy. So ultimately, we would want to get rid of this policy once we get this firewall all set up. However, for all intents and purposes right now, this is a default setup, so I'm going to leave it like it is. So when we go in here and we look in setup, when we scroll down, we can look at default threat protection and default packet handling. And right now, just straight out of the box, this is how it handles all default packets. So any spoofing attacks will be dropped, IP source routes, block port scans after 10 ports, it's going to block. IP scans, it's going to block. IPsec flood attacks, it'll block and drop. IKE or IKE flood attacks, it's going to drop those. We're going to tell it to drop ICMP flood attacks after 1,000 packets per second. um, any sign flood attacks after 5,000 packets a second, and UDP flood attacks. We'll drop those after 1,000. And then distributed denial of service prevention anytime there's 100 connections per second, or anytime there's 100 connections per client that are made per second, then the system will drop that connection. So we've got this. It's pretty simple here. We'll take that and then we'll disable this ping policy. Right, we don't need to take it out, we can just disable it, and then we'll go and we'll save this. Real simple. And now we've got the password in here. This uses two forms of authentication, kind of like the old Cisco's did. It's the same basic principle that you have a status username and login, and then you have a read write, or in this case what they call an admin username and password. And they set it up that way so that you can look at it all day long without making any changes, and you have to have admin rights in order to actually write any changes. Now what's nice about this is that you can take a default template and completely set it up, and then all you have to do is add your licensing to that, and then say you're waiting on your firewall to be shipped to you. You can have everything set up and ready to go. Run the setup wizard on the new firewall, and then drop the configuration in, and you're ready to go on that deal. So we'll go ahead and click OK. And now it's not going to. I may have put in the wrong password. There we go. Yep, that's what it was. I just put in the wrong password. Now normally I would say if we're going to use a password or a naming convention, we'd use something like this naming convention right here. But for this test, I'm not worried about it because I'm going to go in and reprogram all this later. Okay, so we'll go ahead and replace it. And configuration was saved. Alright, now the next thing I want to do is just test it and make sure that I actually got the ping turned off. So ping 192.168.250.100, and we should get no return. Requested timed out. Alright, so we're good there. We got our ping timed out. Now remember, we're going to run these different tests. We're going to run first the nmap, then we're going to run the jumbo packets for the ping of death. So let's take a quick look here. We've got our two other routers with our logins. These don't have secondary logins. They just have GUI based logins into the router. So this is the Ingenious wireless router ESR 1750. We'll just do just a real quick run through on this. Let me log back in. It timed out. That is one of the safety mechanisms that's good on both of these routers, is that they do log you out after a certain amount of time. Let's see, take a look here. Alright, so the IP address for this one is 111. On the internet it is, if we take a look at the status, we see it's got a dynamic IP address. If we wanted to put static in, we could do that here. It does have two wireless It's a 2x2 MIMO, so we've got two radios, a 2.4 gigahertz and a 5.0 gigahertz. Um, so it does have all the latest uh, stuff in it, where we can actually run AC off of this particular machine, which is good. For it being a little bit older, Genius, they're kind of pioneers on the wireless side of the house for very low end, inexpensive gateway wireless routers. They do a pretty good job. I've got to give that to them. I've had this one for probably about 2 years now, and it has done a great job for me for what I've needed. It does run WPA2 with AES, and it's got a client list where you can actually run, look at the clients. It does run a parental control, which that in and of itself would tell me, don't put this in my business. If it's got parental control, it's made for your home. But some people still go out and buy these and put them in their businesses. It does run IPv6, which we're not going to get into at all because that's a totally different topic there. And then it's got some basic firewall settings where we can enable or disable the firewall. We're going to enable that because that's how it comes by default. I should have known better than to hit apply. It always takes a second. We do have the VPN, L2TP, PPTP, IPsec pass-through. We're going to uncheck all of those. We're not going to allow that VPN pass-through because it's not currently set up on the WatchGuard, because the WatchGuard doesn't have a default VPN pass-through. It is a VPN concentrator itself, so we want to make these tests as fair as possible. All right. We do not have a DMZ set up. However, we could set up a DMZ if we wanted to put something on the internet like a web server or a camera, for example. For denial of service attacks, it says block denial of service is enabled. It really does not give you any choices. It says also discard ping on WAN, so we'll go ahead and apply that, so we make everything nice and fair. And we'll go down here to the ACL. We could actually enable the ACL and it's going to automatically reload because it has a load other options where we can actually set up and put in computers, MAC addresses, things like that, and then allow time frames to be monitored and everything. So we're not going to do that. Go back to this right quick. I just want to make sure. Okay, we're going to disable that. Okay. Okay, so ACL is disabled. We're going to take a look at the VPN. We can set up VPNs here for basic VPN setup. We're not going to worry about that. USB. It does have a USB port in it, so you can set up a DLNA or a file server or you can even set up a camera on this particular device and then access the camera through the device. That's one of the cool things about it, but once again, it's very much a home grade router in my opinion, but we see these in businesses all the time. Let's see, NAT. We did enable NAT. We did not enable network turbine. NAT is a standard protocol that's enabled for network address translations. And what that does is basically says I've got a public IP address and I've got a set of private IP addresses, and I want to hide them behind that public address so that no one knows where traffic is actually coming from. So everything that goes out to the internet will actually look like the public address is requesting it instead of that private address. However, we can do some port mapping, really basic stuff. We can do some port forwarding if we wanted to, some port triggering that would trigger an application. ALG, which is traditionally reserved for SIP, but it can also be used with RTSP, FTP, IPsec, and trivial FTP. We have all those turned off. We got UPnP. Basically, that's for zero configuration. We don't even mess with that. IGMP, which is for multicast settings. It is currently turned on, but we're going to turn that off because I did have it working in an environment where I required multicast to be running. So we'll turn that off. It's a good thing we went through these, so everything is nice and fair. Okay, so multicast is turned off. We've got quality of service. We've got bandwidth settings. We could set priority queue, bandwidth allocation. We could set this up to whatever degree we wanted to set it up. For uplink and downlink, we're just going to leave those where they are. And we do have the ability to do static routing. We're not going to do any of that, but we could, if we needed to, actually route an external IP address directly through to an internal IP address for that association. We also have Wake on LAN, or Wake on LAN over WAN. I don't even know that anybody uses that anymore at all for anything. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's used very often. I think it's probably a bad idea to use it. Like I said, though, this is a home grade router, and it's just not it's not what it needs to be. So we go into admin, we go into the time, dynamic DNS, which is surprising for something being inexpensive. It works with dying DNS. If we wanted to run a diagnosis, we could run a ping and look at the result from there. Our firmware's up to date. I checked that while ago. If we wanted to do a backup, I could do that here. Or if I just wanted to do a complete reset, then I could do that there. So what I'm concerned with mainly is my monitor and my log. So we're going to clear this log, and we'll refresh it, and we'll apply that. And we're going to look at this monitor. We're going to look for the bandwidth monitor. Now we're seeing some traffic on the transmit side and the receive side because we're accessing the router from the external port. So that's why we're seeing that traffic there. Normally we'd also see bandwidth on either the LAN or one of the two WAN ports. Okay, so first things first, let's take a look and see. Uh, well, let's run through the D-Link right quick, because I also have a D-Link system here, and same basic deal, very inexpensive. It's a DIR 650L. I've had it less than a year. I got it on sale, I'll be honest. It was pretty cheap, pretty inexpensive, but it works great for test environments. So we'll look in the advanced section. Let's see. We got dynamic IP, which is good. We got everything set up here. We got our MTU set up at 1500. Let's see, our wireless is all set up, which we're not too concerned with. One good thing that if you're looking at wireless that I've seen on both of these is the cipher is TKIP or AES. I personally prefer to go with AES on the cipher. I believe it's stronger. We can go with PSK or EAP. PSK is sufficient, and then our security mode is WPA WPA2 enhanced. So it will go with the higher wireless security depending on what the client can handle. So we'll save that, and go to our. We'll reboot later. Not worried about it right now. We'll look at our internal 10.5.2.1. Let's take a look at this right quick. Get the status here. Our external IP address is 192.168.250.110. The other one is 111, and the WatchGuard is actually 100. We'll finish taking a look at this. We've got our LAN set up. We can actually do DHCP reservations to ensure that when a particular MAC address queries for an IP address, it gets the one that it is assigned. It's got an avoid ARP attack checkbox. Now, I'm sure that's extremely effective, although I have not tested it. Maybe we can do that in another video. I don't feel real comfortable with it because it just says avoid ARP attack, and that just doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies. That's just me though. We set the date and time here. Parental control rules. Once again, when you have parental control, this says home-based router to me, which we still see these in businesses all the time. And you can actually use a parental control to say if you want to block Facebook or you want to block YouTube or something like that, in a business environment. But you're really not going to run more than maybe 5 or 6 computers off of something like this anyway. So we've got advanced, we've got application rules, so we've got a lot of stuff here that we can, take a look at, like AimTalk, BitTorrent, Callista IP Phone ICQ, and PalTalk, which are all applications that I just really have never used. However, there's 24 application rules that you can set in place, and you can block them on TCP, UDP, or any. Then we got MAC filtering. You can actually set up a MAC address and computer name, and then you can set a schedule for that when that MAC address can access the network. I guess that's kind of cool. It's great for keeping your kids off the internet during certain time frames. You've got an access control list. You can actually deny computers from accessing this network. You get 25 of them. I think when the designers designed this particular piece of equipment, they designed it for 24, 25 computers. Personally, I don't think it's got the throughput to handle that many computers. Um, you can take a look at our advanced wireless settings. We can look at our RTS threshold, our beacon period. This is all stuff that really doesn't matter for our testing. We've got our advanced network settings. Our port speed is 10/100. So that in and of itself, once again, says very, very low end. Although 10/100 is still, you know, valid in a small environment, um, it's made for a very smaller home environment. We're going to disable UPnP. We'll make sure this was disabled. The WAN ping respond. We'll leave it in 10/100 mode. We turned off the enable multicast streams, and we'll save that. And we'll reboot later. We'll take a look at the routing. So we can route. This doesn't even make sense to me how to set this up, so I would have to find a book somewhere to tell me exactly what to do. Um, but what it looks like is you can have 32 addresses coming in, or you can route 32 addresses in some way, shape, or form. I think it's in here, but I don't think it's really designed to be very useful. Um, Take a look at the maintenance, basic stuff, dying DNS, firmware updates. I checked it; it is up to date. You can do a system check. All right, 100 meg full duplex. We're screaming there. If we wanted to do a ping, we could do a ping. Let's do a ping. We'll do a 192.168.250.25, not 285, 254, which is the address of my computer, and we'll see if she works. Pinging, we're pinging. Oh, and we're successful. Looky there. Well, we know it pings out. If we want to run schedules, we can set up schedule rules there. Log settings, we can log out there. Then we'll take a look at our statuses. We can do a DHCP release and renew right here. We can take a look. We see that we've got some log settings. We can view the log here. We've got multiple pages. And this will actually tell us, kind of what's going on. First page, we'll clear these out because I want to see what happens when we put this thing to take it to task. And then we'll look at our traffic. From the internet side, we've had 8,279 packets received and 3,055 transmitted. We'll reset that and refresh it, reset it again. We can look at our active sessions. 12 TCP sessions coming from my computer alone. So we'll refresh that, and then we'll look at the wireless. There's nothing on the wireless. And let's go back up here. We'll hit save settings. Go ahead and reboot this dude so that we can start testing. So we'll give this just a second, and I think we'll run our first tests on this particular machine. So what we're going to do is we're going to run an intent scan on this machine through Nmap on a single IP address, and then we're going to see what kind of results we get back. We're going to see how many open ports, how many filtered ports, how many closed ports. We're going to see if we get any sort of security stuff back, fingerprints, things like that. So, but while we do that, we're going to kick it off, and then we're going to come back over here and we're going to look at the traffic stats over here on the box while it's actually running, and then we'll switch back over to the other screen. So there we go. Anti-spoofing is enabled, URL blocking is disabled, RTSP is enabled, VPN pass-through is enabled. So we're going to clear that stuff out. Alright, so let's go back over to the other screen and we'll start here. So with Nmap, it's pretty simple. We just put in our IP address, and we're going to tell it an intent scan, and that's basically going to scan 1,024 ports, both UDP and TCP. We could do all 65,535, but that might take a while, and I didn't want to make this a super long video, but we'll do what we need to do. So we're going to make it an intent scan. We've got our Nmap stuff set up there, and we'll hit the scan button. And so let's go ahead and pop back over, and we'll take a look. We've got 46 TCP sessions, traffic statistics. We've got 2,459 packets. We've got on our log here, looks like we've got nothing on the log other than log message was cleared. Take a look now. View log. Oh, TCP scan attack detect from my IP address, and the packet was dropped. That's okay. That's a good thing. And a grand total of 2,627 packets received and 633 packets transmitted. And there's not really much else to look at. We got the TCP sessions have dropped, and they're slowly dropping because the Nmap scan is done. Let's take a look at that. Okay, from the Nmap scan, we loaded 148 scripts. We did an ARP ping scan. We found one port open. Let's see. The only port that we found to be open on the host was 8080, which we talked about that being allowed because of external traffic coming in. We've got a fisheye here, which we can, or a host viewer, which we can take a look at. That port was the one that was open. Okay. And then host details. The host is up. There's one open port. There's 999 filtered ports. Now, there's a difference in a filtered port and a closed port. So, essentially, a filtered port means that the scanner can't determine whether or not the port is open and available. Whereas an open port, it knows for a fact that it's open and listening for a connection, and a closed port, it knows for a fact that it is not listening for a connection and it is not available. So a filtered port is actually an unknown entity and could be wide open and ready to go. Some of the other things that I'd look at here, we did get an accurate MAC address, the operating system, IPTV, MPEG-2 video encoder. That's because there's a camera availability. The OS class, media device embedded, TCP sequence, it's got an index of 200. It says good luck. Let's see. And there's no comments because I haven't put any comments in there. And so there's the scans. So we're going to go ahead and save this scan. We'll save it to our scan results for 71218, and then we will make that DIR 605 L, and we'll save that. Okay, so basically we did a trace route, one hop. OS and service detection performed. One IP address, sent 2,039 packets. It received 43, which is not what the device said. Let's see, found one open port. It ran a signed stealth scan, a parallel DNS resolution of one host. Got the IP address, and not shown is 999 filtered ports. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do here, and we're going to return to the home page. We've got I got my other screen. I got to log back into this little box. Let me log back in there. Then we're going to do a ping of death here. And a ping of death is interesting because it's real simple. It's just sending large packets on a continuous basis to a particular host. In this case, we're sending it to 110, which is the DIR 605L device, and I'm going to tell it to send a 65,000 byte packet, and then we'll hit enter, and What we'll see is that the request is timing out like it should, because the box has told it uh, not to return anything to us. So we'll take a look at the box here, and let's see what we've got. We are seeing a lot of packets hidden. Um, these are oversized packets, so uh, you know they're very large packets that are coming through. So it's a good possibility that we're going to see them a lot more packets on this side, on the side of the D-Link, than what we would see over on the command prompt. Let's see, view log. It says here that we do have a per source ICMP flood attack. Tells us where it's coming from and that the packets are dropped. So let's look at the active sessions going on here. So we don't have a lot in the way of TCP sessions going on, which we shouldn't have because it should be discarding all of that. So for a light denial of service attack, this little box has handled it pretty well. So let's see. All right. So all in all, I would say that until we compare the nmaps on all the boxes, that this box stood up for itself pretty good. I wouldn't complain about it a whole lot. If I were the owner, well, I am the owner of this box, I wouldn't complain about it a whole lot if I were to put it in and let it run for a very, very small environment that was maybe behind a more robust firewall. Okay, so our next test is the Ingenious. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to change this to 111, and we're going to run the same intent scan, and then we're going to pop over and take a look. So we see the intent scan coming in here. It's not terribly rough on this side. Let's take a look at the log. And there doesn't seem to be anything happening on the log. Let's see if there's anywhere else in here. Yeah, it's pretty well devoid of anything other than just a little bit of transmit traffic based on the receive traffic it's got coming in. So let's see here. Come back over here and take a look. Let's see, we found one port open. Which is port 8080. And still running a signed stealth scan. it has actually discovered 4 open ports. On 111. So let's see how we look here. Oh, we've got a lot of traffic now. Quite a bit of traffic coming through there being transmitted. Let's see. What you didn't see just a second ago was that there were quite a bit of traffic coming across. Transmit traffic. I had you on the wrong screen, so I do apologize. Okay. All right. So it's increasing the send delay on the stealth sign scan uh, because they were getting so many drop packets. Let's see here. Nothing there. Let's see. What's here? Just not a lot of statuses here. Just that real basic monitor. That's very disappointing. This has been a pretty good little router for the last couple of years. Pretty good little gateway router for the last couple of years that I've had it. It's great for 5 or 6 computers. I wouldn't go anything over that. Um, then got some interesting stuff over here. Um, on 80, it tried to go into 80 and see what was going on, and it got a 404 found. 404 not found, 404 not found. Um, HTTP 1.0, some really old HTTP language. 8080 is open. 9000 was open. 9091 was open. And it actually had a signature, a SHA-1 with RSA encryption. And it's got some valid dates there. It's got an MD5 hash and a SHA-1 hash. 10,000 TCP open for your sensor management. And there's actually some fingerprint information here. Is a MAC address for Sanal Networks, which is not indicative of the manufacturer of this particular device. And then the aggressive OS guesses. There's several of them. Let's see if Doesn't look like it. There is an ingenious guess in there. There's a D-Link DR615. There's a bunch of Linux guesses. No exact OS matches for host. Test conditions non-ideal. One hop. All zeros. So this is interesting. It sent 2,809 packets and received 6,563 packets, which means basically that this particular box sent out a lot of traffic based on the amount of test traffic that was sent to it. And if you look right now, you can see the bandwidth monitor is just pretty well off the charts on what it's transmitting. So we'll go back over here and take a look. What is interesting to me, see, there was 3 services that were unrecognized despite returning data. It's unrecognized by Nmap. And then here's the fingerprints for each of the ports that were open, or the two web ports, 80 and 8080. And then port 10,000 had a fingerprint as well. So I'm going to go ahead and save this scan. And we're going to save this to I'm going to save this here. We're going to rename it though, because apparently I didn't name the last one. We're going to name this one ES1750.xml. We're going to save it, and then we're going to move on from here. So our next test is we're going to do the ping of death on here and see what happens. Alright. So, ready? 1, 2, 3, go. And we'll see the request timed out like we should. And we see a lot of received traffic coming in. We see, honestly, a lot of transmit traffic as well, which doesn't make a lot of sense. And since we really don't have a whole lot more to go on, what I would say it's not dumping the ping traffic the way that the D-Link did, to where it's not showing us any traffic coming in. So I would have a serious concern there that if someone did try to perform a denial of service attack, even a small one like this, that it would affect my ability to utilize this router. Even though it's not sending a lot of traffic out, it's tying up close to 60 kilobytes of traffic. So we'll come back over here and we'll stop this. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when it's constant, it can be devastating. Now let's come back over here and look at this. Our receive traffic is off the charts now. So even though it was trying to get rid of it, it wasn't effectively dumping those large pings that were coming in. All right, so we're going to log out of this for now. And here we're going to do our third and final test, where we're actually going to run a series of tests against the WatchGuard T35W firewall. And we'll start off by running a network scan against the machine. We've changed the IP address. The IP address is now 192.168.250.109. So we'll change that, and that will be the external IP address of that particular device. And let's go ahead and run a intense scan off of Nmap, and we'll take a look at it. As you can see, it starts off loading 148 scripts, and we'll take a look over here, and we see that as the network scan plays out, there are just a ton of packets that are being sent over, and it appears that they're all being blocked. And we do have a couple of green packets there, and those are web cache packets, and because we do have an open port, which is 8080, and that's for external management of the device. We talked about that earlier. ICMP is blocked. We've got 4117, 4118, and 4119 open, and those are for maintenance through the WatchGuard System Manager. But other than that, we shouldn't see anything else. So those are the only ports that are being allowed to pass through. Right now, the highest number I've seen has been roughly 49,167, and that was denied. Let's see here. We had a 57,621 UDP. As we know, the highest port you can have is 65,535. And I'm not even 100% sure what that port number is used for. I don't know that anybody knows. I'm sure somebody knows out there, but nobody that I know knows. We do have some IGMP traffic coming through. That's not anything that we're sending during this test. That IGMP traffic, which is multicast, but we don't have any multicast running. So let's hop back over here to the other side, and we'll take a look at the test results. If we take a look here, we see 148 scripts. We see discovered open port 8080. Let's see what else, which we were expecting. Port 8080 is open, and it does have SSL HTTP proxy none. It's got fingerprint strings that look like this. The header gave a 400, which was a bad request, which is okay. That's fine. It's protected against cross-site scripting. Let's see here. According to this, we have a SSL certificate. It did not redirect us to 192.168.250.109:8080, which is good. It should not do that unless you do that specifically. There is an SSL certificate. Subject common name is Fireware. Web CA organization name is WatchGuard. So we've got a couple of identifiers here, but the good thing is that there is it also tells the scanner that the public key type is RSA 2048 bits. It's running a signature algorithm of SHA-256 with RSA encryption. It shows the validity dates, and it shows the MD5 hash and the SHA-1 hash, and it also shows the TLS information, which is good because that's a deterrent for wannabe hackers and even real hackers. Also a MAC address, which I did talk to WatchGuard about this, and I had a concern that the manufacturer's name showed up next to the MAC address, but they didn't seem to be terribly concerned with it, and now I understand why. Because, yeah, we're telling them who the NIC is made by, but we're also telling them that, hey, it's encrypted, heavily encrypted, with just about the best encryption on the market. And then when it looks at the ports, it said OS scan results may be unreliable because we could not find at least one open and one closed port. And it can't figure out exactly what kind of device it is. It says it's general purpose or a phone, which is funny because it's not a phone. This talks about the trace route and how many hops. Of course, it's just a single hop. I'm plugged into a gigabit switch, dumb switch basically. It's just a hub. And then raw packets sent were 2087, received were 65, OS and service detection performed. So this is all here. And so from what I would say, the only ports that showed to be open and available were the ports that I purposefully opened in order to manage the device. So now we're going to do a ping of death and see what we get here. So we'll do a ping, and we'll do a 2.168.250.109 space dash T space dash L space 65,000. We're going to send them big packets, and let's see what happens here. Okay, So we'll switch over to the other side here and we'll take a look. And what we see is we do see the ping packets coming in, the ICMP packets there. And we see how large they are, 65,028. And we see every so often they'll come in. But we have to have so many ICMP packets in a row before it kicks off shutting down the source. So I believe the ICMP packets are like 1,000 before it shuts everything down. So I doubt we're going to get that far, but we could take a look here, and I will tell you exactly how many packets we have to have. Let's see. For default threat packet handling, for ICMP flood attack, we have to have 1,000 packets per second. And quite frankly, I don't think this computer that I'm running is quite robust enough to shoot out 1,000 packets per second. So I don't think we're going to get there on this. So what you're seeing here is this is doing exactly what it should be doing. It's ignoring the packets. And then we take a look at the bandwidth meter, and we can see a few things going on. It takes a second to see this. So we can see the external receive, which is at 109 kilobytes per second, 169.667. So basically 109 megabytes, 111 on a gigabit circuit. So, less than 10% of the circuits being taken up based on a gigabit connection from this ping of death. So we would need multiple of these running at once, which I could probably set up 4 or 5 command prompts and do this, but why don't we do that? Actually, it sounds kind of fun. I know we're a little off topic here. Let's do a ping 192.168.250.109 space dash T space dash L space 65,000, and I actually want to copy that so that I can do it next time. Alright, so we'll go ahead and let that run, and we'll do another one, and we'll do another one, and now we have a distributed denial of service attack. It's not really, it's just multiple command prompts all going after the same target. But we do see a sizable difference. We're looking at 780 megs of external receive and then 52 megs of send, because each packet that comes in, the WatchGuard is obligated to send a reset back out, so there is some external traffic based on that. So let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's get 10 of these dudes going. So this will be 7. 8, 9, and 10. And wow, we're really getting up there. We have exceeded we've exceeded what we anticipated. And we're just rolling right along. Now, what'll be interesting would be to go back and do this on one of these smaller boxes and just basically see what happens there. We might actually melt the box down. Could be fun to do though. Alright, so we're discarding traffic left and right. We've got tons of pings coming in. The green 4117s there are updates to the system manager. And if you take a look over on the other side here, we've got black boxes everywhere. So there you go. That's a lot of fun. We'll click back over and we just see nothing but ping traffic going nuts over here. However, we do still have connectivity. Alright, so as you can see, this box is by far superior in my opinion. It has only shown one open port, which is one that we opened. We can actually see that traffic is being blocked, whether that's a ping storm or an IP storm or any of a number of other things going on the scans. It showed exactly what it said it was going to do. Now I'm going to take the testing on this one just a step further here in a second. Compared to the D-Link and the Ingenious, which are, the Ingenious usually retails about $150 to $250. The D-Link retails, this particular one, I think it was 30 or 40 bucks. I think brand new it was probably around $69.99. So it's really kind of not a fair comparison between the two, between the three, because this box, the WatchGuard retails I think for like $2,500 with all the stuff that I've got on it. But it is fun to play with and look at everything. So here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to actually unplug from the external network, and I'm going to plug into the internal network, and I'm going to show you something that I think will be very, very impressive for you. And it's not that I'm trying to sell you a WatchGuard, because I think that Fortinet and Palo Alto and SonicWall and all these other higher end firewalls, unified threat management boxes will all pretty well do the same thing. It kind of comes inherent with the level of appliance that you're purchasing. All right, give me just 1 second. Alright, I had to unplug a few things and replug a few things in. And as you can see here, I'm going to turn off my wireless because my wireless was connected also to the centralized network. So we're running completely inside the WatchGuard, and we'll get a look here at the IP address. The IP address I have is 10.25.100.10, and we'll need to shut this down. And we'll need to disconnect because we have to reconnect from the internal address, which is 10.25.100.1. Don't ask me why I chose that IP scheme. It's just the one I picked. I don't know why. I just liked it. You know, it's just like that sometimes when you're an IT guy. So we see here that we've got everything in order. We've got our certificates. We've got everything is good to go. We've got our fireware policy manager. It looks the exact same way it did when we were coming in from the external. We've got the same Firebox system manager that we had. It tells us everything we'd ever want to know. What this tells us here is our subscription services, and it's telling us that basically they're not turned on, they're not working as of right now. And I need to do an update on a couple of these services. I haven't turned them on because we haven't been testing those. So we will turn those on in later videos and check them out, but right now that's not what we're doing. So let's take a look at the traffic manager here. And now remember, we're inside the network, so we're not going to do anything crazy from the outside. We're going to do all of our crazy stuff inside the network. And so you're saying, Tony, why are we doing crazy stuff inside the network? Well, the reason we're doing crazy stuff inside the network is because sometimes those wonderful employees that you have, they bring in these funny things called thumb drives and they plug them in. And sometimes those funny little thumb drives, they have malware and viruses and things like that on them. And when they do that, those things, those malwares, those bugs, they like to propagate across your network, and then they start looking for a way out, and they start looking for what's called command and control channels. And so they want to see what they can do to get out of the network so that they can get back to the hacker that built the bug, the bot, whatever you want to call it, so that they can talk about back and forth about what's in your network, decide what data they want to steal, gather it up, and then do what's called an exfiltration. And that exfiltration is where they actually take the data outside of your network. So we want to stop that. So an inside the network scan can be just as important as an outside the network scan, or pen test inside, pen test outside. So we're going to change this to 10.25.100.1. We're going to do an intent scan here, and then we'll see what's going on. Alright, so we see a port open, which is 8080, which it should be. Let's see here. Our sign stealth scan. Oh, it looks good over there, but check this out. it recognized the network scan from within the network. And when it does that, then what does it do? It starts blocking that network scan so that nothing comes back. That's what makes this box unique and worth the money, or boxes like this, these higher end UTM appliances. And it's done essentially now, so now it's just telling me that there's some ICMP stuff, and there's some other unhandled packets that it's blocking. But for the most part, DNS still running good. WatchGuard Firebox Management is still good. And then when we look over here at the scan, we see that we've got 8080 open, and that's about it. It looks almost just like the internal coming into the network, coming in from the external. So it does show the RSA encryption. It shows the fireware web. It shows a number of things, just almost exactly the same. So what I would say is that you have pretty much with this box versus with the other boxes, you've got protection going in both directions. So this is why I'm such a believer in unified threat management boxes or next generation firewalls. If you guys want, we can take a look at one of the other boxes. As a matter of fact, why don't we do that? We'll go ahead and lock this down and log out of the WatchGuard, and we'll see what happens when we use this DIR box, this D-Link. We'll fire this little guy up, and it's up and running. And let me see here. We'll bring this over. I'm sorry about the noise in the background. I do have a family, and they've apparently decided to go crazy. So we'll ignore them for now. And let's take a look at IP config. And we've got an IP address at 10.52.20. So we're going to do an HTTP colon 10.5.2.1 colon 8080. Oh, we don't need to put the 8080 in there because it automatically redirects. And we'll put in the password. Okay, we'll go to advanced, and we'll go to status and traffic statistics, and we'll refresh, reset, refresh, and we'll view our log here, and we see we've got a log there. And let's see here, 10.5.2.1, and we'll do an intent scan, and let's just see what we've got here. Okay, 148 scripts, ARP, just doing all of its thing. Open port on 80. So it's got an open port on 80 for internet, and that's really about it. It did get some DNS resolution, which is good. 80 is simple enough. It sent out 1,020 packets. It received back 1,017. 80 is can be one of the command and control channels, so that's why we like to go in and monitor that port, put a gateway antivirus and that sort of thing on there. The big thing here that kind of blew me away is it told us exactly what it was right there. It told us, it was a D-Link Systems wireless router. It gave us the Linux models, which version of Linux. These are all things that are indicative that hackers are going to look for exploits. Now, once again, this is a very cheap home router. But the reason we're talking about it is because we do see these so often in businesses, and it's just a bad idea across the board. So anyway, that's what we've got. I have really enjoyed doing all the research and the work to get this done. I hope that you guys enjoy it as well. And at this point, this is the point in the show where I bid you adieu and tell you, frankly, that I will see you down the road.
I didn't want to talk. She just sat with me. That was all I really needed.
Coming, Mark?
We got back, and of course we went to different cities. One day he called me out of the blue, and it's comforting to know that I always can count on him to have my back.
We hadn't talked for a while. And then she texted me, and we went for a walk.
She called me from time to time. I really didn't think I needed any help.
I was away from my family during the holidays, and a friend invited me to their house for dinner. It really meant a lot.
He knew I was having a rough week, so he asked me to go fishing with him.
My friend knew that I didn't want to go out, so she brought me dinner instead.
It took me from being really depressed to feeling like somebody cared. It gave me some hope. Just that one text.
Be there. Your call, your presence, your words, your support. Be there and help save a life.
Well, y'all, looks like the show's over. So check us out on our website, www.tonydegonia.com. Then click on the Tony DeGonia Show button at the top of the page. You can also check us out on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, or Spotify, or any of our social media outlets, which you can find on our website at www.tonydegonia.com. Hey, thanks for listening in, and we'll see you down the road.